You've heard of metaphysics, but not like this. I'm Michelle DeVries, and this channel is about applied metaphysics, practical tools for clarity, purpose, and transformation. Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of Applied Metaphysics with Michelle DeVries. Today's conversation is especially meaningful because it goes right to the roots of my PhD research project. My first guest, Darragh Mason, is an author, podcaster, and host of the Spirit Box podcast. So some of you may already know him, and some of you may even be here because he's shared this interview. This episode also launches a new series on the channel called the Case Study Chronicles. In this series, I'll be sharing conversations with participants from my 2-year PhD research project, which explored the archetype of the ancestor as a form of technology. That might sound unusual at first, but what it really means is learning how ancestral patterns and connections can be activated as powerful tools for growth and transformation. Darragh's story is the perfect place to begin because in many ways, his journey was the proof of concept that gave me the confidence to expand this work with 30 participants. We began working together in April of 2021, meeting regularly, sometimes monthly, sometimes quarterly, for 3 years. Along the way, we also became dear friends, which makes this conversation even more special because the process changed us both professionally and personally. In this interview, you'll hear about the deep archetypal work we did together, the transformations that followed, and how his process ultimately led to become a traditionally published author. Let's begin with my friend and colleague, Darragh Mason. There's so many voices in the metaphysical space now. People with platforms and big opinions, but little to no initiatory experience. And if you're tuned in, you can hear it when they talk, right? And because of your platform, you've had the opportunity with many individuals that fall on that spectrum of uninitiated all the way to initiated. That's why I've always appreciated your discernment and why I think this first question on trust is so important, because you were the very first person that I worked with in this way. And I was always upfront and like honest and transparent with you that I was testing methods passed down to me by my ancestors, and I didn't yet know if they would be replicable in others. I knew that they worked on me, and so anything that I did with you, I'd already actually gone through myself. But even with all of that, you still said yes. And I've always wanted to ask, why did you trust me? And was it instinct or timing, or was it something else?
Yeah, no worries. I thought it was probably a combination of instinct and timing. I just got a very good vibe off you. One of the things I talk about whenever it's relevant on my show is around discernment. And I think the biggest indicator of discernment is your intuition. If you're in this kind of territory, you're going to have some kind of intuition. Yeah. That might be underdeveloped for some people or very dialed in, but for others. But that was the thing. I got a very good vibe off you. And also when I first spoke about my experiences with my friend Elise, she mentioned we should probably talk to Michelle.
Oh, that's right. Okay, that's how we were initially connected, was through Elise. That's right, because I took her fluency and tarot class, which I highly recommend. And then I had a couple of sessions with her afterwards because I joined her monthly subscription of coffee and cards. And then that's right. I had a bunch of sessions with her, and then she had mentioned me to you, and that's how we got together. Right. Good. We're connecting the dots back in time. Good. Okay. So yeah, I agree with you that intuition, when it comes to session work, because that's actually what we're talking about today, is the session work that you and I did. I mean, I know that we started off with the friendship, and we started off with just sharing research, but then it developed into, hey, I do this crazy kind of stuff. Would you want to try it out for me? You want to be my guinea pig? And you were like, yeah, let's do this. I was like, okay, let's figure this out. So honestly, everybody listening, that's where this started. It happened organically. I think that's the best way for something to happen, especially because we're going to get into some dark things, right? And you and I did. So I think that's a good way to, let's go back to the very beginning with you. We went back to the beginning with us. Let's go back to the beginning with you. Not all the way, but to where you had that moment when everything just stopped. You stepped away from all the magical and metaphysical
Yeah.
practice, and
Mhm.
it was a dark and disorienting time, and
Mhm.
yet that's exactly where your transformation began. Can you talk about that? What
Yeah,
happened?
absolutely did. Yeah. Yeah. Essentially, I was doing a magical practice around building the energetic body. I was doing it from a thelemic perspective and doing kind of the basic stuff around doing Resh, which is like a daily practice several times a day, prayer to the sun or adoration of the sun, and also doing some supporting meditation, and then a particular piece of work called the middle pillar, which is basically pulling energy into you and activating it in various kind of points on the body. And I was doing that. I was doing it from a thelemic perspective, and I did it for about a week. And the last time I did it, I had this pretty intense vision. All these things, it culminated up to the energy built up to me having the vision, right? So I was doing the middle pillar, and I had a poster of the tree of life on my wall. And every time I did the middle pillar, it would peel off the wall, right? So it never
Yes.
happened at any other time. Just a corner would peel off. And to the point where I was like, that's weird that it keeps happening during this time. And then I was doing the middle pillar, and I had this particularly intense vision, one that was really somatic, one that was like, I could feel the sensations in the vision. I could sense I saw this wall of fire. This eye was staring at its burning eye, which then morphed into this dark angel, which addressed me. It was very gothic. It showed me the sigil of Lucifer, showed me this statue of the Genie de Mal, and then it just took off vertically, and I felt like I was being pulled up with it, and it just really rattled my cage. I was like, okay, this is, I can't, I don't know what to do with this. I wasn't expecting this. This is
So
too much.
you weren't going through all of those processes or those practices to experience that. It just happened
No,
to you as a
yes,
side effect,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
totally.
Okay.
Basically, yeah, it was way more than, it was just above my pay grade. I was just like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
Well, I think I know what it is, and everything I've heard about it is not good.
Yeah. Yes.
Like I don't want this. It was too much. And again, I wasn't a particularly experienced magical practitioner. I've been skirting that world all my life. There's certain things that I'm pretty good at, pendulum divination, that kind of thing. I've been using sigils for God knows 20 years or whatever. But this was like, okay, I'm going to take this seriously. And then that happened within a week, and
Wow.
it just scared me off it. I didn't talk about it for about 3 months. I mentioned to Elise, and she was like, "Really?"
Yes.
I'm like,
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. I remember Elise saying, that doesn't happen. And if I didn't
"Yeah,
already know you, I would have thought you were making it up, right? I
yeah." I
remember
mean,
her
she said it
saying
in a
that.
blunter way than that.
Yes.
Um, uh,
Which is why we love her. I
yeah,
love that about her.
but she was like, "Go and talk to Michelle." Michelle is. She was just saying, "You're very psychically gifted, and go and
Nice.
talk to her and kind of see what happens." And
And the
that's when we
rest
kind
is
of started doing
history.
sessions.
Here
We had
we
a couple
are.
of preliminary chats. There you go. Yeah. So that's where it all came from. And after that, I never really touched Thelema again. I kind of just, and I haven't since. I'm not really interested in it. My path through our work took a totally different direction when I wasn't expecting. But when I look back now, I can see that was the trajectory I was on. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what happened.
it's good to talk about these things and have a timeline. And I do this with the people that I work with, where I create PowerPoint presentations and we document everything, which we'll get into that in a little bit. But the reason why I document so much of what I do with everybody is so that you guys can go back through your timeline and see how certain things were significant, and how, like you had just said, that was the path I was going down, which eventually led you to something else, but you had to do that. And a lot of people, like, if we were in a session right now, it would take you all the way back to that point where you were deciding to do those things. What made you to decide to do those is what I would ask you, so that you can learn, oh, that's how my psychic ability works. Oh, okay, now I see it because I've lived through it. I'm going to go back. So let's do that now so everybody can see. When you were talking about all those things that you were, I wrote down thelemic, when you were in the process of learning about that and then saying, yeah, I'm going to actually spend some time on this. Did you have any moments back then where you thought, this is weird? I don't know why I'm doing this. I just know I have to do this. Did you have anything like that?
It's a really good question. I think, to be honest with you, I think it was more of I've been on the sidelines for decades with the occult magical practice. And I just decided now it's time to commit to doing something with this. If I'm serious and interested about it, then that was it really. I was kind of like, okay, let's do this, let's try it, I'm pretty well read, but I just decided to jump in and do it, and then it all took a spectacular turn. That was it really.
Okay. So you did have some type of nudge. There's always, anytime I talk to somebody and we go back and revisit the timeline, there's always a nudge. And there's always a moment of, like, because you could have picked anything, right? You're reading all these books, you're doing all this, so you could have literally picked anything to start going down that path,
Oh yeah,
right? And that's where I like to, we don't have to do that now, but so if I was in session with you, that's what we would do is say, you picked this and this. How is this different from the other things that you could have practiced? That way, there's sovereignty and understanding of processes of consciousness expansion through decision making. That's what the process of working with somebody like me that does a specific type of life coaching is that let's look back and understand how, Darragh, how did you make the decision? I mean, this changed your life, right? It changed the trajectory of your career path, your focus, right? Your focus on what you were doing outside of, your day job type of thing. It changed your personality a little bit. We'll get into that too, because the other future case studies that came to me came through watching you, and they saw your transformation. And that's where I think a lot of people that are very psychic, at least from my experience working with individuals that are really psychically gifted, I've had some amazing people come to me. When I take them back, they have such a better grasp on their gifts and talents when we're done just reflecting. There's such a power in reflection and connecting dots. That's why I'm spending a little bit more time on this part of question, because that beginning point is a pattern. You're going to see that again and again. You like the next time you pivot, it's going to be there. And you're not going to be the deer in the headlights that you were before. Like, oh shit, this just happened to me. I don't know what to do with it. We want you to where you're like, I see it coming. Now I know what to do. Even though I'm not quite sure what this is, I can brace myself now. I know I'm good. I know I have the skill set to accomplish whatever's coming at me, even if it scares the shit out of me. I'm good. I'm fine. I've done it before. That's where I was trying to get with that. And so do you feel like you're at that better place now where,
Oh yeah. Yeah. And if I talk about reflection, man, I think this is an important point. When I look back at kind of the things that piqued my interest, that I noticed in terms of a pattern that was starting to present itself to me, I noticed this dark figure in Irish folklore. Long before that vision happened, there's a video, I think it's like 2019, 2018, about me talking about the Dark Horseman on YouTube. That's before I understood the prevalence of this figure within magic, long before then. And then I kept coming up against the figure being presented in interviews, particularly with magicians, where they were, witchcraft-based magicians, witches, saying I had a vision of this dark man who switched me on, as it were, which makes me think that realistically, that I could have been doing yoga, I could have been doing some kind of Buddhist meditation. If I was doing any kind of energy work, the same thing probably would have happened.
Yeah.
It just so happened that it was a particular magic practice. I actually don't think it has that much to do with magical practice. That's what I think. I might be wrong, but that's what I think. It was more about the activation of the energy body. Yeah. So if you were doing some other thing that amplified that aspect of you, then boom, all of a sudden you're in the right place for things to get switched on.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to make, because The individuals that I worked with, they all had something different as their catalyst, but they all got to the similar point within themselves, right? Like an understanding of growth and expansion to
Yeah.
where they came out, they went in a different way and came out a different way. You think, well, the one thing I learned working with people is you really honestly at the beginning think you know what you want. And it's like your future self and your ancestors are like, we'll see about that because it always changes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
anytime I sit down and do goals with somebody, I'm like, okay, what do you want to do? Well, I write it down. The ancestors will just smile or they'll like do the here we go again because this person thinks they know and they don't. And so I
Yeah.
think it's important that when you are as gifted as you are and all these others that I worked with, you really need to know how to pivot and you need to know how to discern, but don't over discern, right? Like you have to, it's that fine line of not being so open that your brains don't fall out, but not being so tight to where you can't shift, right? You
You get
can't do
paralyzed.
that. Yeah, exactly. You get paralyzed. And I think when you expand yourself, like what we did with you, you just take in more information. And when you have more information, then your perceptive abilities become more heightened and more you like get a
Mm-hmm.
mastery over them, and then you have the ability to see like perspective, right? That's how you see your belief systems and your overall viewpoint. Then that shifts as well, right? And I think that's a
Yeah.
good lead into this next question, which is in the work that we did, we don't bypass the dark, we worked with it. And one of the processes that I took you through was that expansion point where you came to me with the problem and you were like, I don't know what to do with this. And any other person might have said, I don't want to go there because this is dark. This could follow me home,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. It didn't happen.
Mm.
And we looked at it, like I like to look at things just from a very mature, grounded perspective. And I said, okay, yeah, this is dark, but it doesn't have to be. Let's look at it that way. Let's actually get in there and figure out what this is because it's got to be more than what it is. It always, if anybody listening, if I could teach anybody anything, not always what you think. The minute it happens, your perceptions are filtering things and your perspective is so off about 90% of the time I've learned when it happens. And when you get that fear and that apprehension and that that moment, you're not thinking clearly.
You go into a
And
fight
you
or
will
flight response.
shift. Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You go into a fight or flight response.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
and you just don't see the wood from the trees. You just become like very blinkered. You can have a somatic reaction to this. Your whole body can go into like
Yeah.
panic.
Yeah.
Because it's you have to remember that when you have something as intense as that, it's life changing. Because like I said, I skirted the world of the occult and the esoteric all my life. I had some traumatic experiences when I was a kid, but nothing like this. And that's the thing is that when you have something that intense, you can't rationalize it. You can't go, oh, must have been this, must have been that.
Yeah.
That doesn't work anymore.
Mm-mm.
It is what it is, and
Yeah.
you have to face into that, and that is pretty world shattering.
Yeah. I'm glad I'm writing down you must face things just so I can remember. You said skirted the occult. I think that's probably, if I was to analyze this, the reason why you skirted it so much is because an aspect of you probably knew something like this was going to happen. Right. And almost
Probably,
the way you were talking
yeah.
about before was that it was fated. It was like it was going to happen whether I was doing yoga, right? Like I was meditating, it was going to happen. I was doing anything at all, it would have happened, is what you were saying earlier. That to me sounds like fate, right?
I think there's a certain aspect of that, and people have that in different areas. It's a certain thing that we struggle with, in a sense, because you don't want to present yourself as being like, well, I'm special in this way,
Yeah.
because there's a substantial amount of people who are having the same thing. But it is a quite different thing to happen for most of the populace. There's no other way to talk about that. It still is common enough that I was able to write a book about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's common enough, I can tell you, from all walks of life, from all age groups, because I worked with people from age 30 all the way up to 80. And I worked with all professions, people that were stay-at-home moms to a physician's assistant. I worked with the full spectrum. and left brain, right brain, all those things. And everybody, like I'm getting goosebumps. Everybody has a story.
Yeah.
And it may not be your story that was that intense, but everybody has a moment where it shifts them. Their consciousness goes whoop like that. And now they're seeing things differently. And you try and talk about it to somebody and they look at you like you've got two heads. And then you shrink a little bit because you're like, ooh, I can't talk about this. And then something else happens. And the more you come out in your consciousness, the more you're seeing things others aren't seeing. And that's when you find somebody like you read your book, you find your podcast, you come to somebody like me, because we're way out here and we can kind of, in a way, safely expand you to where you need to be.
Yeah, totally. And there's a certain period of time as well with that when you become utterly immersed in it, where you're talking in a way like everybody else is going through the same thing. That's just kind of thing you got to ride out.
Yeah,
you're going to be a bit nuts for a while.
Yeah,
that's going to happen. I still see people where I'm like, oh my God, I can't even look at them. The last time I spoke to them, I was like, you know what? All intense because you were, going through
you're excited. You're like,
stuff,
oh my God, there's this new aspect of reality that's real to you. It's not real to them yet.
No, they're like, okay.
You find out very quickly who you can talk to, who you can't, and what you can. There's a threshold with people, right? And you learn that when you first start expanding. This is what I love about when I'm expanding people outwards, and I say to them, because like when I do it within session, it's very controlled, right? I could say to you, the next 2 weeks, I need you to pay attention when you're talking to family and friends. Notice what you can and cannot say. And then when they come back the next session, I'm like, how did that go? Yeah, now I know what you're talking about. Because people always look at you like, you should be able to talk to anybody. That's my husband. That's my wife. That's my mom. No.
Yeah.
You will find out very quickly that you are here and they are here, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, it is what it is. And you gotta, you still have to be, even though I'm doing like consciousness expansion.
Yeah.
Even though you're out here and you're seeing things they can't see, you still have to live in this world with those people. So you gotta just be different in your own head.
Yeah, you do. And you like there's a certain amount of othering that you have to accept with this, right? There's a reason the witch lived on the edge of the village.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what it is. You're different. And not everybody will understand that or will go with you on that. In fact, some people won't be able to, and that's just the sad reality to it. It's the othering that comes with it.
And I think I'm glad you brought up that point. So I'll make this point before we get back into the question that I want to ask. But when you said the witch lives on the edge of the woods, she does that for protection for her and for you, right? Because when you're talking to somebody, if you stretch them too far, that's a big no-no. It's a spiritual no-no. So you don't ever want to stretch somebody too far, because it's just like a physical stretching of a muscle. There's gonna be a scar there. Like sometimes people can have psychotic episodes if they go too far and they're not ready.
Yeah. Because as much as I described, having a reaction to an intense otherworldly experience that you cannot explain away, if you're conversing to somebody who hasn't had that, you're talking about all this fucking mad shit to them, you're giving them a minor taste of that. You're giving them a minor taste of that kind of weirdness, except they're focusing in on you and they're like pushing you away, because it does come across as you might be crazy or you're out there or whatever.
Well, and plus you've just destroyed who they thought you were. And you're now this other person to them that they don't know where you fit now, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to put that toothpaste back in the tube at that point.
Yeah. No, right? You can't put the genie back in the bottle there.
No. And all right, so we were talking about the stretching and we did that consciousness expansion, where the reason why I do that is so that because we're swimming around in all this field of information, right? Electromagnetic frequencies, cymatic waves, all that, if you want to get technical, but it's just information, it's data. And the more you can expand your consciousness out, it's like sometimes I feel like a psychic personal trainer. I'm just teaching people to train their gifts and their talents.
Yeah.
And so the more you stretch out, the more information you take in. And we did that with certain techniques like dynamic journeys, which is an active, interactive meditation type of thing. And then we did the Mace Energy method. We did tarot card readings. So what shifted for you as we used those techniques in different ways? How did you take this experience and then through months and months of us slowly, I mean, we did this over months, people, like
Yeah, like
years,
2 years. It was
like two
two
years.
years. Yeah.
But each session would be
Yeah.
monthly. I would do a 2 hour session a month. And sometimes I would do two a month, but mostly I like to do 1 2 hour session a month so that you have time to adapt what we did and
Mhm.
work it within your life. And when we did those shifts, they were monthly shifts. What shifted for you exactly? Do you
I
remember?
suppose if we kind of start around the reading, because I think we had initial conversation. I explained what happened.
Yeah.
You did a spread on it, and we did a kind of initial session on the spread, and there was a couple of things that were super accurate, and then things that you came up with some kind of obscure reference that I'm like, no idea what that's about, and then a week later it would happen to the point of someone turning up my door that was directly correlated to the card, and not in a fuzzy, well, maybe, none of that,
It was like a direct hit.
direct hit.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, well, we've tapped into something, because my life was all of a sudden plotting against this card reading that is in an undeniable way. Also, in stuff that you spoke about in the reading that nobody knew about. And you were like, did such and such thing happen? On okay, wow, which is testament to your gift, really, as well. So like bang, bang, bang over the target, like three hits, straight away, bang, 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 and I'm okay. This is just undeniable. So that was some of the foundation. I will get into some of the card stuff as well. But when we started going through our dynamic journey sessions, I guess it's probably where we started to tap into my gift, where I don't know if you recall, but when we start working together, I'd go deep really quickly.
You went deeper
Yeah.
than anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, because I wasn't really, I don't do hypnotherapy, I don't do trance
Mm.
work, but you were just in and
Yeah.
really connected and you were almost speaking, like something was speaking through you. Does
Yeah.
that make sense? Is that accurate?
Yes, it did. I mean,
Okay.
and certainly there's parts of my book that are very much like that.
Yeah.
And it was similar to that, where I was just tapping into this stuff that I in real world certainly didn't have experience in, but I would know or have an explanation for some of it, that was just something that I could tap into, that was coming through me from Darkman, essentially. Even now I slightly cringe when I say that, but that's what happened. And I'm very grateful for our sessions, because you were there. You know what I mean? It's not me just going, hey, by the way. It's like, you saw that stuff. You heard it all. Like when that started coming through.
Yeah, and I've worked with almost 30 people now, and no one's ever done that. No one's ever gone that deep in, and I mean, everything about you changed. Your posture, your voice, the pace of when you talked. And I remember there was one session where you were giving me information about me, and my ancestors taught me to be irrelevant. So I don't, anything about me, I will deflect. And I kept saying, this isn't about me. The dark man's talking to me. I'm like, dude, this is about him. So if you want to do something separate with me, then we'll schedule that time. I kept coming back because I was like, this is his time. And so he was even at one point talking with me, and it didn't feel, so just so people that are listening to this, it wasn't creepy and scary. It wasn't like, most people talk about this stuff and it's different. It was a different, like, you could definitely tell it was different than what I do with other people, but it didn't feel evil. It didn't feel malevolent. At least for me, it didn't. I don't want to put words in your mouth. So how did it feel for you when it was actually happening?
It's a really important topic of conversation. I mean, I think we should caveat this with as well that we weren't approaching this like ghost hunters.
No.
You know, we wander into an asylum and go like, "Is there anybody here?" Not
Yeah.
knock twice. We weren't kicking the door open with this naively. We approached this with a lot of caution. We did a lot of divination. The whole crux of this was a divination, and I was doing a lot of my own as well. But what this was, particularly with the dynamic journeys, was putting a toe in the water and through these sessions in a structured way. You had mapped out the journeys and we would go on those journeys. And then, but you'd get feedback from me as to what was happening and what I was seeing. And while these things are intimidating, they might not feel, it didn't feel malevolent, didn't feel quote unquote evil, but it was still very much underworld. It's not 100% safe. It is what it is. This is going to the edge of something, and that it's not something you should skip towards naively. But we built up over 2 years, consistent building up and working through. And I think that's one of the things that people need to figure out with this is that it's not just I get a tarot card reading and I'm done. Not remotely. This was a consistent, long piece of work, and you were exceptional with that, and in how you helped steer me through and observe and watch and interpret what was coming back from me, the information that came through from your ancestors to help with that. And there's so much stuff that we won't talk about today, and there's certainly not in my book, of like fucking strange stuff that we went through. And that's part of the territory here, you know. And it was transformative because I started to become comfortable with the underworld. I started to become comfortable with the dark, and it's something that I've always felt drawn to, always, all my life. I've always felt drawn to, but I've been afraid, and part of me still will always be afraid to some degree. But the other part of me now, and the part that has significantly changed, is I am aware and I'm far more at ease with that underworld. I'm far more at ease with that dark current. I have an understanding of it. I don't say I understand it. I don't, but I have an understanding of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't take it for granted. I'm not casual with it. I'm still going to maintain my boundaries, but I am a lot more at ease with it, and also what it means for me as a person, that understanding that this is a part of me and this is something that kind of I can swim in, if that makes sense. I'm not even sure it does, but there you go.
So I wrote down, that was very good, thank you. I wrote down the shifts just to do a little summary. So the shift was your intuitive voice that would come through, differentiating between your voice and another voice. We could say it that way, right? Because that's when we were going into those sessions, it was like I was talking to Darragh, now I'm not. And you can feel that difference. You can sense that difference. And when you're writing, it was occurring as well, right? So it wasn't just in our sessions, it was outside.
Oh yeah. Joke about it, but it's true. But like the best parts of the book, I probably had the least to do with. You know, like
No,
people
I
like,
totally
oh,
get
you were on fire in this bit. I'm like, thanks.
You're like, You're like, to him.
So it was being comfortable with understanding that there is a connection to me and this energy, this current, and fashioning myself in almost all aspects, emotional, physical, mental, spiritual, to be an aperture for it to express itself. And as we said, that was 2 years. And it was quite all encompassing, because you remember this, there was lots of stuff about the body as well, where before I started writing, I would like in the gym for these intensive periods, and the instruction to build physical strength, all this kind of stuff. And a lot of that is, I mean, my interpretation of it is the kind of the wear and tear of the body of doing that kind of channeling is quite exhausting. when I was writing in those particular intensive chapters, I'd be in bed by 6 p.m. going, stop talking, I need to sleep. It would be that kind of intensive and full on. It would just drain your battery.
Yeah.
And there's part of that, it's not just taking from you. Part of the exhausting element to it is you're getting concepts and revelations that are outside of your kind of earthly world, and they just come with a punch a bit. You got to roll with the punches as the stuff came through. And a lot of our sessions were training for that. They were becoming familiar with that. They were knowing how to come in and how to come out. So our sessions were, my view on some of them were us going in and essentially, for want of a better metaphor, you're holding my hand or you're holding the rope and letting me in and then pulling me back out.
Yeah.
No,
that's a great way to describe what happens when I work with somebody, because I was always taught by my ancestors to bring somebody back their sovereignty is essentially what I was taught to do, and to teach people that they don't need somebody else. They're perfectly capable of doing this on their own. They just forgot. And we just have to remind them of what they're capable of. So sovereignty is a big thing. Yeah. And so I'm glad that you mentioned not only the intuitive side of it, but there is that physicality that I think the reason why the dark man was okay with me working with you at that level was because I had already worked with a dark archetype, the hidden predator. And I had so when you say certain things, part of the book, maybe I don't even remember writing that. The part of my paper was like that too, where I'll go back and read certain sections of the paper, maybe to get prepped for an interview. And I will say to my husband, I can't believe I freaking wrote that. I don't even remember that. And I do remember it, but it's so weird to say it because you did it, right? Like you physically did it, you edited it, you put your blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. But when you look back on it, you're so in the zone. And I felt, I don't know if this is how it worked for you, but when I was writing the paper, I felt like the archetype was sitting next to me. And I would just ask questions and he would be like, no, or yes, or go look up this, or go grab that book. And then I would just flip through them. Oh, it's the perfect quote. And then I would put that in, and then I would write 3 paragraphs. And then that would lead to another question I'd ask, and then I would just get the answer. And sometimes I would write a whole entire section in an hour or two. And other days it was pulling teeth. It was
it's exactly the same. Yeah, exactly the same.
So you really do go through that ebb and flow of, you have these creative windows, and you have to do as much as you can within those windows, which is probably why you were so exhausted, right? You're like, I got to take advantage of this as it's happening and get as much work done as I can, because you don't know when it's going to come. Yeah. And working with archetypes totally. Is a whole nother level.
When those... It's
Sorry,
taxing,
there's a delay. Sorry.
And I just said it's quite taxing. There is a price to pay for it. And what I would find when I was doing those types of pieces, when those bits were coming, I would always get my bell rung with a synchronicity. So something would happen to tell me, yes, that's correct. There's a reason why you thought of that.
Yeah.
And be very specific stuff, like where I wanted to write this piece about caves and why they're important. And then immediately talk about this figure found in a cave called the Sorcerer, right? Then I wrote this, what I think is the best chapter in the book. It all came in 2 days. And that's when I was like, leave me alone. I need to sleep, right?
Yeah.
And then the same week, I'm meeting our friend Elise in London. And I'm in the British Museum getting some time. And I pick up a book about bestiality, monsters and beasts and all this kind of stuff. And I open it, just pick it up, and I open it. And I opened on that image, on that piece of cave art. I open it on it. And I was like, Jesus Christ. Literally, I wrote about this 2 days ago. And I just picked it up and opened it on that page.
Yep.
And then in preparation for one of the interviews that I was doing with the guys from Scarlet Imprint, Peter Gray wrote a great book called Apocalyptic Witchcraft. And he talks about the same piece of cave art in it. And I'm like, okay, wow. And it turns out this is quite an established idea. It goes way back to, what's your name? Margaret Murray talked
Mhm.
about it in, I think it's The God of the Witches, if that's the right one. Might be. I can't remember. But anyway, this is the stuff. When you're on the right track and things are happening, you're going to get those synchronicities. You're going to get your bell rung. You're over the target.
All right, so I've got your intuition was shifting. It was becoming more
Mm-hmm.
heightened. You were getting your physicality, you were understanding how to work. Usually, when I say when you work with archetypes, they work in you, on you, and through you. And
Mm-hmm.
so that physicality was coming out. You were seeing patterns and synchronicities that were
Mm-hmm.
corresponding to the intuitive
Yeah.
pings. And then you were being, I think this is the most important, is you were becoming comfortable being uncomfortable. I think
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest accomplishments in metaphysical type of practices, as well as an athlete growing up. And that to me, I always hone in on that because as an athlete, you have to become comfortable with being uncomfortable in not only your physical body because you get tired from training, but being uncomfortable with maybe not playing so well, maybe costing the team the
Mm-hmm.
point. And
Mm-hmm.
that's an uncomfortable thing that's not even
Yeah.
physical, it's psychological. And the uncomfortableness is that not only physically are you being taxed when you're
Mm-hmm.
working with until you calibrate yourself, and then usually that levels
Mm-hmm.
off. And that happens also with gifts and talents. I've helped people go from being a massage therapist, ending the day completely taxed to no, he's no longer doing that. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
fully sovereign in his gift and
Mm-hmm.
talent. So it is doable if anybody's listening. You
Mm-hmm.
can become comfortable with the uncomfortable and not have it rule your life. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
So
My take on that, just to riff on that quickly, is that if you're not comfortable with it, it's probably going to get worse.
yeah.
This is that part where you have to do the work. I mean, I'm sure there's people who are able to step away and go, "This isn't for me," or
Mhm.
whatever. I'm sure I don't know. But from what I can understand of it, if you try and push it away, it might not work.
No.
Or
Yeah.
if you don't allow yourself to develop into it, you're just going to have that kind of horrible time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've actually had a case study that I think I left you a message the other day, or was that for somebody else? But I told you about a case study who, when she came in, she wanted to develop a gift and talent. When we were done, she decided she didn't want to do that. She was like, you know what? I
Mm.
really don't want to do this anymore. I just want to focus on my family, my career. And
Yeah. Fair enough.
I made sure that she was
Yeah.
fully sovereign in that. She's like, I've never been
Yeah.
more right about something before. I said, great. And then I've had other people
Mm.
who we had to do what we did with you. It it
Mm.
wasn't going away. Something came
Mm.
back
Mm.
20 years later. And it was
Yeah.
in the cards, it was in the session. I didn't know it. I didn't see it for a year almost into working with this person,
Mm.
came back again. And
Wow.
I'm getting goosebumps because when it comes to metaphysics, so if you ever work with somebody like me or work with somebody at this type of, I don't want to say caliber, I just want to say, because I do life coaching, but I do advanced life coaching.
Yeah.
I have a certification in an alternative therapy method, so I can go into the
Yeah.
subconscious depths when other life coaches probably can't do that. But so I go deep with people, and I'm actually talking too much. I want you to do most of the talking. So let me get back to your shifts. Your shifts was voice, intuition increased. Your fear, you went from fear to confidence, right? That is really important. You went from being uncomfortable to comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And your physical, you were able to understand and connect dots with physical patterns as well as intuitive patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And your observation levels were more expanded. Those were the shifts that we
Mm-hmm.
took you through in order to go from this was scary. I don't know what to do with this to I wrote a book about it. And now I'm full on, I've mastered this. So that was that. Okay, so let me get in because we will get into more of this. We jumped ahead a little bit, but let's go to, okay, let's map the crisis moment through the four M's, which is just to show how practical this metaphysical process can be. So the 4 M's are everything has to be meaningful, manageable, measurable, and materialized. Anytime I work with somebody, it's a framework I developed over 15
Yeah.
years of working with myself and working with others. So let's filter what happened with you. So meaningful. Obviously, it was meaningful to you because it happened and you had to get to the bottom of it, right? What did the experience
Yeah.
begin to mean? So we understand, we already talked about the beginning. So when we started zooming out and reframing it, your meaning is going to change. Meaning does change. Intent changes, right? Your intent went from what the hell's going on? What do I do with this? Was, whoa, I can actually do something with this. Holy shit. Now this is meaningful in a different way, right? It changed from what the heck happened to I need to talk about this.
Yeah. And your ancestors where what came through from them, I think that was really helpful for me in terms of the meaningful aspect of things, was particularly around the interpretation that came from your ancestors around my vision. What did it mean? There were specific phrases that you were able to help unpack that were said to me in the vision that helped me understand what was going on. It also aligned with other sources that I had come across in some of my reading, which was great. That really reframed it for me. So I was like, okay, I have a grasp on what this is now. And that gave us a golden thread throughout the session of this is the framing. This is broadly what the relationship is. And then we went through various different dynamic journeys. And that was hugely helpful. And that in itself really moved us directly into the manageable phrase of things, right? Now I had context. Now I had a structure. Now I had a box that I could put this into, right? Without it just being this fucking crazy thing that I can't grab on. I can't manage it. I can't hold it without it blowing up in my face. So that was hugely helpful. And I think in terms of things being measurable or observable was the change in my reaction to it as we did the various dynamic journeys. But again, a lot of it was those synchronicities, those bang, bang, bang that were telling me, okay, this is a real thing. And that was quite significant. And yeah, a lot of that did come from those dynamic sessions and then the kind of sessions I did myself. And when we talk about measurable outcomes and then the kind of the materializing session, the first card reading we did had a librarian card which came up in those sessions about authorship, which I hadn't spoken to you about, and knowing that this is something that you can do. Yeah. This is this came from you directly, going, this is something that you can do. This is in you. This is in your ancestors.
Yeah. Do you want me to bring that up? Do you want me to share that real quick?
Yeah, let's go straight into that then, I think. Okay.
Let me. There it is. All right, here it is.
Yeah, this was very important, and even looking back at it now, a few years later, it's quite interesting to see. But
really quickly, before you get into this, was your reading. This is how big the reading was. And when I used to do these, this was an ancestral reading. I don't do these anymore because they take a lot of time. Back then, it took me a week to calibrate myself to the ancestor or ancestors that were coming through, or your future self. And I had to gather things. I had to do a ritual, like an altar, an offering. I don't have to do that anymore. The first couple individuals I worked with truly helped me understand how to work with the archetype of the ancestor. And then I was good after that. I didn't have to go to this level, but this was the reading. And future aspect of Darragh picked these cards. I did not pick these cards. I did not pick the layout. I did not pick the way in which it was read. That was all taught to me. So this isn't like, oh, where do I get this spread? You don't. You can't get this on the internet. It has to be given to you. And even the way in which it's one of those origami things that we used to make back, and now I'm dating myself, in the 80s and 90s, where you would do this with your hands and there would be numbers, and then you would pick the number, and then you would do that, and then you would have all these. So these readings that I do, they kind of
who your husband's going to be, that one.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
They were so much fun, right? My sister used to make those. I didn't know how to make them. I just know how to use them.
Mm.
But these readings, the way in which they're almost 3D, where the ancestor, your future self, will show me this card folds into that one. This
Yeah.
card folds into that one. And you don't just read it in a circle or left and right. You read it based on a holographic reading. And these were all like the card on the left was the ancestor, the card on the right corresponded to the gift and talent. You're talking about the inner librarian, which is right here.
Yeah. So the interesting thing was that I had already written I had two manuscripts in various states of completion. And in the one that I think I was still playing with when we did this, had a character essentially quoting parts of, or paraphrasing parts of, the Daughter of Fortitude stuff that came through from John Dee and Edward Kelly's scrying sessions, which came through from an angel who was called Madame.
Yes.
Right. And then in the
Yeah,
top
I
part
remember
of the
you
card,
freaking out about this card because I didn't know about Madame. You had to interpret this card for me, which is different, right, than what's normally occurs when you do a reading.
Yeah.
And so everybody knows an ancestral reading is extremely dynamic. I get information, I deliver the information, but the person I'm doing it for always has a piece to it that I will never have. So it's different than a traditional reading. And this is where the audience will get to see. I mean, he's going to see things I'm not going to see. And this card was extremely personal to you, right? Because of all the detail in it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was again, one of those things, the hair at the back of your neck go up, So that was quite a shocking one. There were the other ones in there like that make a lot of sense. I mean, there was one that was seclusion and keeping the warrior aspect of myself in check through seclusion. And I also had a kind of a direct message from him saying, limit your time online, don't get involved.
You're talking
online.
About this down here.
Yeah.
Seclusion. The ancestor was the imprisoner and the gift was of seclusion.
Yeah.
And that corresponded across, we had to read it, that corresponded with the inner librarian and a place of healing. Yeah, and writing would lead to healing. So there's all these things you can see on the surface, but then there's stuff underneath that
there's really deep currents.
Yeah, there's a lot of currents in there and there's a lot of crossover. And when I first did this, the ancestors said to me, this is a blueprint for Darragh, and it's still playing out today. It still is. And I know that some readings will go stale and you'll have to do another one, but this one is very much in play still today, and especially the inner librarian card.
Yeah. And I would say as well, one thing that I've, the last year or so that has played out in my life in the physical world is a warrior aspect of things. I play a lot of aggressive sports, which I haven't done for 20 years. Now doing them as an old boy takes a long time to recover, but I enjoy it immensely.
The warrior card, let me see if I have a smaller one. I don't have a smaller one on that. I don't want to share too much, but the warrior card's over here, right? That one. And this one is, if you fold this directly across from disease, you had to be very careful. That energy, which the point of that being, if you folded it up, they would smack their faces together, right?
Yeah.
The male warrior, if you don't put that in check and get that under control, it will eat you from the inside out, essentially, is what it does. I mean, and
equally,
look at it.
If I don't express it as well, it will turn in on itself. And,
And to be honest with you, I was confused by this card, this male warrior card, because I didn't know that about you yet. And I remember saying when I first, it's so funny, when I do readings for people, I ask for zero information so that I can get that. I don't know why this card's here. I know I have to talk about it. I know how I have to talk about it. And they're just going to have to tell me if it's right or wrong. And I remember saying, I listened to your podcast and I'm like, that's not the Darragh that I hear. And we had been friends for maybe 6 months or a couple months by then. And I don't see this, but it's obviously there. I have to trust this. And I remember saying to you, you need to be very careful. This side of you is there. And you were like, oh yeah. And I was like, oh, thank God. Because you have a good poker face. You don't show him. And that's good because
Yeah.
this card shows him that, I mean, look at him. He's got blood on his
Yeah.
sword already.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He's all
Yeah.
in. His
Yeah.
that mode is activated and it's not being deactivated.
Mhm.
He's the Terminator right now. He's coming at you whether you like it or not. And you could see how if that's not in check, the disease is going to get you,
Mhm.
right? And I'm getting goosebumps talking about it because,
Yeah,
yeah,
I remember that conversation.
yeah.
I was like, "Oh, Michelle, I'll beat the shit out of some."
And people listening to this are probably like, really? It's like, yeah, everybody has that in them. So don't think you're special.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Don't think that you don't have that male or female warrior in you because you do,
yeah.
right? Yeah, you do. Put you in the right circumstances and he's going to come out. But as long as you know that about yourself, as long as you're
Mhm.
honest with yourself, it's not going to, the magical disease or physical disease isn't going to, yeah. And so that was just a warning of
Yeah,
this is you, this is what could happen. So get your shit together, as blunt as the ancestors are. But
it's
yeah.
it's finding a safe expression as
Mhm.
well for that, so it doesn't turn into anger. So far, that's worked out as brawling with farmers in over. Sure, this is in a sporting context, Michelle. It's not just like
Yes.
random. Yeah, it's not in a car
Like,
park.
oh no, what are we
Yeah.
going to hear today?
But yeah, chasing rugby balls against farmers who are 20 years younger than me.
Yes. You have that capability in you.
Mhm.
You just have to be smart about it. I love it for where you're at within your life that this card came up. It's a good card if you have control over it, for sure.
Mhm.
And just so everybody knows, this is Josephine McCarthy's Quoria deck. It's the deck I started using initially until she came out with Mystagogus, and then I switched over to that. But this is the Quoria deck. I forgot to mention that.
Okay.
That's her first deck, and I will put a picture of it, and I'll put a link in the description and stuff. So, okay, are we good with this? Do you want to talk any more about
No,
the
I think we
spread?
covered it. Yeah.
Okay. And so the materialization, the last M had to do with this. And this actually came up in the beginning. And
Mm.
we didn't know that it was going to end in the book we're going to
Yeah.
talk about here. Let's see. All right, let me stop share. Okay. All right. Did
Yeah.
our work together reshape how you inhabit the various different roles that you play in life? We can start with as a podcast host, you're a family man, you're an esoteric and occult researcher. Did the work that we did together reshape how you inhabit those roles or how you show up in them publicly?
Yeah, it definitely did. It made me a lot more. It made me more comfortable with those. And when I'm evidence that those things aren't conflicting, you
Okay.
can sit in those worlds. You might sit in them differently to somebody who, say, isn't a family person. But it made me more comfortable with my own voice in terms of my own areas of expertise and knowledge. I felt a lot more assured in those areas. But also, I've spoken about this on my own podcast, where being the outsider, being different in a sense, and against the other thing, right? Where I would be too weird for a lot of the other, I guess, for want of a better word, the jocks. I might be on the team, but I'm really fucking weird to them. And
Yeah.
then on the other side of it, all like maybe goth kids who would be like, yeah, that guy's a jock. You know what I mean? So you're somewhere in the middle. You're in the kind of the
Yes.
no one's land. I actually really enjoy playing the sports. I don't have much in common with the people I play them with. I have a lot more in common in my interests with all these goth kids. But,
Yep.
you know,
That's where the two of us are
mm,
complementary because we're both in that same boat where we're athletic, but then we're
yeah,
into all this stuff that is
yeah,
weird to those people, right?
yeah, totally.
All right. You've become more comfortable, more assured, walking between worlds, essentially, as an adult. And
Yeah,
really in a career path.
there's some things that would be different for me in some aspects of how I would approach other aspects of my life. I might be kind of more measured in them, but broadly, I pretty much feel authentic.
Yeah.
I'm all of those, then I'm fine with that. And if other people were challenging that, in all honesty, I'm comfortable to the point where I'm like, you can say what you like, I still am of those things. So good luck. That's I think that's one of the shifts. And we talk about, may say, me when we started the process, me now, is that
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with who I am. I get people saying all kinds of shit to me. You made everything up and yada, yada, yada. I'm like, I doubt we're going to reach a satisfactory impasse with
Yeah.
this conversation.
Yeah.
And I let that, to be honest, most of that stuff and go, the dark man can deal with that, because in essence, that's what that person's challenging. If somebody's having that go, but that's part of being semi-public, in a way.
It's going to come with the territory. And I'm glad that you're working with it in that way where you're comfortable with your authenticity. You're more assured that you can just say, look, that's just where that person is. So
that's it.
Either listen or don't listen. I don't have to argue with you. I don't have to fight with you. I have things I have to do. So have a good day.
Exactly. Totally. Totally.
Yeah. Good.
We're not here to take homework assignments for people.
No.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Exactly. And it's just that individuals like that, this is where this almost came full circle. The conversation at the beginning with people initiated and uninitiated. That's a perfect example of somebody that is not initiated into something. They cannot even fathom the level of work that goes into creating the book, The Song of the Dark Man, Father of Glitches, The Lord of the Crossroads.
Yeah.
So somebody that's been initiated into something, when they read that book, they can just feel it and see it. You just know. And somebody that reads it and says, you made that up, that to me says you've never had the initiation into anything. And that's when you just back away.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an aspect to it. The other part of it is that you get people who can gatekeep and think it's their thing. And they feel an ownership over it. Equally, having these experiences doesn't make me some incredibly well-versed witch in everything. That's just not the case at all. But I think that's just part and parcel. You're going to be challenged. You're probably going to face your shadow in some shape or form. That's just going to happen. Yeah, that's just the way it is.
That's a really good way of looking at it. And I'm happy to hear you talk about it that way. All right, so let's look at what's become real to you. What else has matured and shifted or clarified as a result of our 2 years working together? This book came about, but what else happened that you could share?
I'm way more active. I'm way more active being out in the world. And that's something that came up in your sessions with being more active, being more in nature. I have a particular affinity with plants. I love gardening, growing food. I talk about it quite a bit on my Patreon. I make my own herbal medicines now. So I'm a lot more active in my relationship with plants. I actually processed a bunch of female nettle seeds today that I've been drying for 2 months or something for medicinal purposes, that kind of thing. That's a big part of my life. I've very much got a relationship with nature. I'm way more physically active, although my appearance may not give that away, but I am. I do a lot of archery. I do a lot of sports pretty much every day, sometimes more than others, but that's something that I've gotten back into. And there's been a 20-year gap in that.
That was one of the mandates of the Dark Man, was you've got to get your physicality in check because of the work that we're about to do. Wasn't that? I think I'm remembering that as your thing.
There was definitely a part of that.
It was like diet, exercise, physical fitness was an aspect of it, prerequisite is what I'm remembering. So is that accurate?
Yeah, it is. It's certainly, I certainly haven't cracked that, but I'm a hell of a lot different to how I was. And that's been brilliant. That's also given me a hell of a lot more. That's given me a community I didn't have, all that stuff, which has been brilliant. Very transformative and hugely enjoyable in the different stuff that I do. Some of it is, as I mentioned, very combative and physical. Other parts of it are very meditative, and it's about stillness. The sport is about stillness and accuracy, where other sports are about explosiveness and controlled aggression. So it's totally different sports that I'm doing and activities I'm doing, but they're very beneficial.
Yeah, you can see the different sports in the cards. The seclusion stoic woman is the archery. She's very focused, very steady. And then the male warrior is the rugby player, right? He's going after it. And
Yeah.
every time I reflect back with somebody, I'm like a broken record. I'm always saying, this is why you work with ancestors, because they understand you better than you do. They understand when they're telling you something that they told you what in 2021, it's now 2025. You need to become more physically fit. They didn't tell you what to do. They just said, you need to do this and figure it
Yeah.
out and start doing it, and then you will shift and figure it out. That's what I love about ancestors, is they don't ever give you everything, but they
Yeah.
give you just enough, because they know that enough you're gonna take it to where you need to go with it. And that's leaving you
Yeah.
with your sovereignty at the same
Hmm.
time. It's more of a cooperation, an affiliation, a
Hmm.
partnership, and it always ends up amazing and beautiful in the end, because you're physically active with these group of men, and then you're also able to have your quiet time and focus in on something else, which is those two cards, embodying those
Hmm.
two cards. And I didn't even realize it until just now
Yeah.
that, oh my God, you're actually physically doing it, as well as when you're writing and you're meditating, you're that seclusion, that stoic person. You're
Yeah.
wrapping yourself up, imprisoning yourself in the work of writing the book. Because anybody who writes, you have to do that. You have to tell your family, leave me the hell alone for an hour. I need space. I need to be able
Yeah.
to just get in there, seclude myself, wrap myself up, and then come back out. Right.
Yeah.
And when you're performing archery, you have to be really focused. Your breath, everything has to be in sync.
Yeah. Yeah.
The ancestors are
Absolutely. Yeah.
teaching you all the different ways to do that. Gift
Hmm.
and talent can be expressed
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
multiple different ways. And I'm
Mhm.
getting goosebumps because it's beautiful. You're doing it beautifully.
Yeah. It's absolute precision. Like when you're shooting, it's the difference between flexing your back a little bit too hard can mean your arrow goes too high on target. So it's
Yeah.
down to the minutiae. You're absolutely conscious of what your body is doing, where you're at, your
Yeah.
breath, whether it's an inhale or an exhale, all that kind of stuff. And then, as I said, the other sport is about explosiveness and dynamism. Totally different. They couldn't be more opposed, really, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But they do encompass those cards really well, I think.
And what I really love about you getting out there and participating in rugby is that you're being forced to be around people who you would not normally be around
Yeah, I wouldn't know
when
them
you're
at all.
doing the occult. And so you're getting that, the ancestors in that first directive or the dark man, or, I think it was the dark man who said, you have to do this, focus on this and you'll be fine. Which to me was like, you better do this. You know what I mean? Like anytime he said something, we were like, I'm writing this down and you better do it or it's on you. I'm
Okay.
not taking responsibility for this. And it really did feel like it was a command, right? And it's because he just knew that if you got this camaraderie of that is going
Mm.
to be beneficial, not only the
Mhm.
physical aspect of doing it at the age that you're at, because, I'm almost 50, so we still got it, right? We can
Mhm.
still hang out and
Yeah.
be physically active and kick some ass. And that's a level of confidence, right? That's part of your spiritual makeup, your psychological makeup. That's a big
Yeah.
win psychologically. And then that plays over into family life, into friends, into the podcasts, right? The camaraderie of meeting new people and,
Mm.
and interacting with these new people. You're more balanced.
Well, 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want people to see that all came from doing a dynamic journey when
Hmm.
we didn't even know where that was going. So you can take stuff that is very vague,
Hmm.
like I remember him saying, get your shit together. And so it
Yeah.
was very direct, and it was, you need to do this and that and figure it out because you're a big boy. I'm not going to tell you what to do, because then you don't have sovereignty
Yeah.
and you're not picking it. You're not picking
Mm.
your poison at that point, right? Because we're all going to suffer. It's just, well,
Mm.
do you want somebody to pick the suffering or do you want to pick it? Well,
Yeah.
I want to go to the gym and pick my suffering instead of having a disease pick it for me, right? That's
Yeah.
just me
Exactly.
personally. I want to feel
Yeah, it's a
sore.
very astute,
Yeah.
yeah, very astute view of it. Yeah.
Mhm. I'm glad that you took it. I'm glad
Mm.
that you shared that so that we could connect those dots
Mm.
back through all the way back to that one session. So let me see, where are we at? All right. You answered this, but what's the difference in your own words between Darragh then and and now?
Yeah, it's all the stuff we really covered. I'm very centered in who I am, and I've got vehicles for expression, the difference myself, and I'm confident in those. I don't really worry so much about different aspects of myself. I also have a very vibrant offline life, which is equally an important balance to have.
Good. All right. This is a direct question on the book itself, because you mentioned me, you mentioned Elise and Shuli, you mentioned all these people that helped you, and the acknowledgments of the Song of the Dark Man. And I've heard you reference not only myself, but the other two women and the work that you did with them in these interviews. And it means so much to me every time you do that. And I've actually gotten clients from it. I've gotten case studies from it, and it's been incredible. So you're my PR campaign manager. And I know it validates everything, even for Elise and for Shuli, the work that they do. I'm just really thankful that you did that for us. It really is validating for people that read the book.
Honestly, the least I could do. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. In what way do you think our sessions and even the work, let's bring Elise and Shuli in and these other people, in what way did that contribute to the shaping of the book itself, so that people can understand that you do kind of need this support system when you're doing a project that big, right?
The three of you were teachers, colleagues, and support and friends throughout the whole experience. Very much is a shared project from my perspective, not least like Shuli and Lise have specific chapters in the book. Their experiences, particularly Lisa's, were like hugely relevant to mine, but down to granularity, like where, I was thinking, who should I ask to do the introduction? And this is generally true. I was walking home and I was thinking, I wonder, should I ask Peter Mark Adams? And you just left me a voicemail. My phone went. I played the voicemail. This is genuinely true.
I remember the voicemail. I remember.
Yeah.
I think I was driving when I left it.
Yeah, and you were like, for your introduction, have you thought about that quote unquote, that Peter guy, the Saturn guy?
I call him the Saturn guy because I can never remember his name. And he wrote that really popular Saturn book. Yeah, I always call him the Saturn guy.
I was like, fucking holy shit. I was literally going, should I ask Peter Morgana? And then ding, you're like, have you thought about that Saturn guy? I was like, whoa, okay. Again, the bell gets rung, and I emailed him that day. And the next day he wrote back saying, yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
And we've discussed that as well, because he asked me at one stage, we've become good friends. And he messaged me at one stage going, why did you ask me to do this? And I was like, well, my friend Michelle, I was thinking about it. Then my friend Michelle literally sent me this voice note, the exact time frame. So I felt it was very much guided to do so. And he's like, what about you? And he was like, well, yeah, kind of the same. It's like, felt that it was just kind of a gently nudge towards doing it. You had a very tangible presence in that book. I talked to in the last chapter, I talked to how much you helped me in culminating in the ritual work that Shuli and Elise and I did. So it very much felt that you were on that journey with me on it and had a significant role in getting me through that. So yeah, that's why.
I love that story, because I remember when I heard you talk about that on a podcast, somebody had asked you. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, I remember that day. I remember driving and stuff like that just happens when I start working with, so just so people know, when I start working with somebody, as soon as they say yes, it's like stuff will start coming, right?
Yeah.
And people that work with people in that way, they'll totally get what I just said. And I probably left messages similar to that with others, but I'm glad that you remembered it, and I'm glad that you shared it, because it's a pretty funny memory that the two of us share.
It is, but it's also kind of like, it's a real marker of the difference between what you do and what you're able to do versus some straight life coaching. Right? Yeah. Because there is a metaphysical aspect to it. There's a deeply psychic aspect to it, and once you kind of, as I said, once that agreement happens
Yeah.
you and someone work together, that stuff comes through.
Yeah. And always, well, I'm glad you said that because I warn people, I'm like, I need to hear you say you want to work with me. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. Because
Yeah.
I would do when I was interviewing people for the research project,
Mm.
and I would go through my whole PowerPoint presentation. I'm like, okay, are you in or out? And they're like, I'm in. And I'm like, so you're
Mm-hmm.
telling me you want to work with me on this? Yes. And I need to hear a yes. Soon as that happens, I'm like, hold on to your hat. Because you've basically given your ancestors are like, let's go.
Yeah.
I can see them sitting on the edge
Yeah.
of their seat.
Yeah.
Is this
Yeah.
go time? Is this go time? Okay, go. And then I start leaving
Yeah.
messages. I always get people's Instagram, or because you're overseas, so Instagram
Yeah.
DM. If they're in the US, I get your phone number, and I'll get
Mm.
messages all throughout. Usually it's in the mornings and while I'm driving. It's usually the most inappropriate time. It's like when your body is busy doing mundane things, the adult
Mhm.
version of you can start talking. That's while I'm driving,
Yeah.
which is why I leave voice messages for people. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up
Yeah.
because it's just so normal to live that way. And I think that, and that's the point of me talking about
Yeah.
this, elaborating on it more, is that I honestly feel that that's the way a human being should operate and function, is that
Mhm.
intuitiveness should be turned on all the time. And you should be comfortable with it. And you should be able to just, oh, I don't know why this guy popped into my head, but I'm going to leave a message for Darragh and I'm going to
Yeah.
tell him
Yeah.
this. And I was fine with it. If it was wrong, it was wrong. I don't give a shit.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I think that's the reason why I've been able to work with
Mhm.
you on such dark things, because
Mm.
I come to it as it is what it is, and I'm not going to be afraid of it. And there is an explanation. I'm a firm believer that
Yeah.
there's an explanation for everything, and
Yeah.
nothing just happens. You know,
Mm.
if you have a gift and a talent that comes out, like I'm sorry, but I'm not really impressed with it, because you should have that gift and talent. You should have it and you should be using it and you should be adept at it. So let's get you
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah.
And the intuitiveness that you built up, you're mastering this gift and talent of intuitiveness and understanding that, you know, that you had that thought before I called you,
Yeah.
right? It
Yeah.
was there. And then
Yeah. Mm.
I was just, so you had it, and then boom, I probably had it. And then because we were already in sync, then your ancestors can say to me, oh, tell her to do this and do that. I become an asset in your life, right?
Mhm.
And I know that this has happened with other participants where I'll leave a message, I have no idea the meaning of it. I just, their face will come into my head. I'll
Yeah.
get this understanding of what I need to say. I leave it and I just go on with my day. To me, it's just an everyday thing. But the other person always says, I cannot believe you just did that, because I was
Yeah.
reading a book or I was doing, and it's like, stop thinking that's extraordinary, because it's not. It's the way that we all should be operating and functioning. And I always remind that person that, but
Mhm.
you did it first. Weren't you already thinking? Yeah, I was. So what's extraordinary? We're working together, so it should be happening. If it's not
Mhm.
happening, that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
If you're working that closely with somebody, is what I'm trying to say. It should happen, and
Yeah.
that's possible even when you're working with somebody. If somebody agrees to come on your podcast, do you have synchronicities with them?
I had one episode. It was actually with I might have been on Mana's show or she might have been on mine. I can't remember which. But I was basically reading her thoughts before she said something. I was like, "You mean this place, don't you?" And she's like,
Yeah,
"Yep."
good. I'm glad that you noticed that. And everybody should be noticing that, is what I'm trying to get
Mm.
to. It's been an honor to walk with you through these initiations, this transformation, the
Mm.
thresholds, and then to witness you fully integrating this, because we talked about the work. And you and we had no idea where it was going. And I'm grateful that you trusted in the process and you trusted me and you trusted something, right? I
Mhm.
trusted it, you trusted it. I'm glad that we both trusted ourselves and
Yeah.
that we're smart people and we can figure this out.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful that you were the first one that said yes to all the crazy things that I put out there. And we didn't even talk about the other deep work that we did, which I'll probably get into in the paper when I write up about it.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for trusting me and allowing this process to unfold. And you did the work. You actually did the work. You stuck with it, and look at what happened.
Well, I can only really return the compliment. I'm really grateful to you for your commitment and really how much work you do in this process. That's the thing. I think people might not understand or grasp it, but you put a huge volume of work into this, a huge volume of work. And we're really very professional in it. You would send me reports and contact reports breaking down our sessions, which I've come back to and have been able to use as references. And there's you don't always get that kind of volume of support and commitment, and then indeed kind of like able to have stuff that you can focus on and walk away with. So yeah, back at you.
Yeah. You're talking about the power presentation decks that I do. Everyone that I work with gets a deck.
Yeah.
And I document everything as much as you humanly can without recording it. Sometimes I do record sessions, or the person can record it on their computer because I don't have much space for that. But it's very important to document. When it comes to metaphysics and spiritual work, if I could leave it with anybody, document, start a journal. I'm not saying you have to do it every day because I don't have time for that, but I have a timeline of stuff that I've documented, like significant things, so that I could go back and connect dots. And I did that for years and years and years and years. And you'll be able to, dots that were from 10 years can connect to something today. It's amazing if you can see it and plot it. You will expand so much further than if you don't do that. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that is something that I do with everybody that I work with. And this will be a good lead into the last two questions of what would you say to someone who's curious about this metaphysics, this weird philosophical thing that nobody knows how to talk about, maybe even being spiritually aware, maybe increasing their spiritual awareness, but still a lot of people are skeptical about how this kind of work helps you in real life. What would you say to somebody that's like on the fence, that's skeptical?
I think those are really useful. The first thing is you're going to be exposed to an awful lot of things online. I would tread very carefully there. It's of limited use. Yeah, I think being pretty mindful of what you see online is a good kind of touchstone. Your intuition is really important. Does it feel off? Then it probably is, right? What you touched on, if you're experiencing things, write them down. Because you will forget details. Write them down and reference that way. In terms of like, how does it help in your life? I think I can only speak for myself, but your authenticity in terms of becoming who you are in a more complete sense. That's what it has done for me. I've got a huge amount from it. But a lot of that has been, these are the areas you need to work at. You're not as shithot as you think you are. You know what I mean? You got to do some work here. And that's the honest truth, is that if you're going down that path, you're going to have to do some work. You're going to have to do some work yourself. You're going to have to look at parts of yourself that are actually not great, and recognize that and figure out how you're going to navigate that. And that's what I mean about online. You're not going to get that from watching reels. I need to be discerning. That's my experience. In terms of people being skeptical about how it's going to affect their lives, or even the reality of it, I can't convince somebody that stuff's real or not. That's their journey. It's their life. It might not be real for them. It might never happen for them. I don't know. I think it's more about inwardly who you become rather than validation from others. Yeah. You validate yourself more than you need the validation of others. That's been my experience. I mean, I say that I have a podcast, I've written a book about the subject. you might go, well, that requires an awful lot of validation from others. And yeah, but it's probably true. But in a lot of ways, that's a sidecar. It's more about who you become yourself. Right. I don't know if that answers the question.
You answered the two last questions. So we're done with the Q&A aspect of it. I'm going to hold up the book. I'll put a link to it as well. This is your book. It's been translated into Spanish, and I'll put links and I'll put pictures of everything as well. But this is the book that he materialized through the process that we just went through. And where can anyone get a copy of this? Everywhere, right?
Yeah, all good online bookstores or in your friendly neighborhood occult store.
Okay. And then where else can they find you and information? The podcast is Spirit Box Podcast. I'll make sure I put a picture of that too in
Spirit
the
Box
intro.
Podcast. I'm on Instagram.
Okay, Instagram.
At darragmason.com. Yeah, Instagram and my Patreon. That's really it. Yeah.
Okay. I will get your link tree probably. I'll add that to the description.
Yeah.
Everything's under your link tree, right?
Okay. That's it. The whole lot's there. Yeah.
Good. And if anybody wants any information about session work with me and how you can go through what Darragh went through, then it's just michelledevries.com. Other than that, I want to thank you again for taking the time to walk us through this process. It was a lot of work. And you've come a long way, and you did a great job. And not a lot of people would be willing to do that for such a long time. And you really need to be commended for that.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I can only, again, return the compliment. Your stewardship, your professionalism, your commitment, and the gifts that you shared in terms of your insight from you and from your ancestors, and all that had a tremendous impact and really facilitated it for me.
Yeah. Well, this is awesome.
10 out of 10.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. Awesome. All right. Well, I'm excited to see where you're going. We'll have you back on to see, because again, that reading that I did, initial reading, was a blueprint, and it was supposed to continue to play out. So maybe we'll talk about other cards in the future if they're relevant to what you're doing. But you've got some more projects coming up that we talked about earlier. We're not going to get to that because maybe we can do something on it next year. But you do have projects in the works, and this isn't your last book. Let's just say that. And then the Spirit Box, you put out, it seems every week you put out a show. Is it weekly or
close?
Bi-weekly?
It's
close?
I think I do 3 shows a month.
Okay, so 3 shows. Yeah, that's just about every week. Yeah, definitely. You can go to YouTube and sign up there, or you can go to the Patreon, or wherever the podcasts are. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, wherever you listen to podcasts, I'm down there. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thanks again, and we'll end it here.
A pleasure. Thank you so much.
I'm going to stop recording, and then we'll just wrap.